around a career path in petroleum economics. So I think Testimony, do we have a time frame for this presentation?
Yeah, it's supposed to be 1 hour. You can contain it in less than that. It makes sense. So just to add some ground rules for some people that are joining us for the first time, you can ask your questions even during the course of the presentation. You can just drop your questions on the chat and then we'll pick it up.
Okay, so I proceed.
Yeah.
Okay, so our outline for this, obviously we're talking about a career path around petroleum economics. So and our outline for the day, so we'll look into petroleum industry value chain, overview of petroleum economics, shows across the chains, paths to petroleum economics career, the experience in the upstream sector, skill sets relevant in that role, and comparison with other roles in the industry, the petroleum industry. So going straight into the value chain of the petroleum industry. So the petroleum industry is broadly divided. First of all, we know what petroleum is. Petroleum just means oil and gas. That is a kind of a fossil fuel that is formed by decomposition of organic materials over years, like thousands of years. So beneath the Earth's surface. So that is petroleum by definition, of which, if refined, so we have different products that we see every day, including our very common petrol, kerosene, even petrochemicals, including drugs, nylons, and so many other things. Like every day we actually deal with petroleum products. So the petroleum industry is actually a very, very, very vast one. So, but broadly, we can just divide them into 3 categories: the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. So in the upstream sector, we have the oil and gas exploration and production. That's the major business in the upstream sector. So which is exploring for oil and gas, and when seen to actually develop and produce them. So in the midstream sector, we have the transportation and the storage. Let's say a particular volume of oil has been produced, or gas. So in the meantime, maybe you may need for gas, for instance, you may need to store it before sale, or before transportation, or before off-taking. So whichever case it is. So that is a very vast business in its own case. So the storage of oil and gas, so is a vast business in its own case. So that belongs to the midstream. Then the transportation also. Transportation of oil and gas from one location to another, either in its crude form, so either to a refinery, to off-taking point, or whichever place it's going to. So that is another business in its own. So in that, you see talk about pipelines and related infrastructure. So that belongs to the midstream. And downstream, you have production and usage. So by product preparation, which is refining. So the refineries, they belong to the downstream sector of the value chain. So, and the usage, how it gets to final consumers, including all of us here. So that is just an overview of the petroleum industry value chain. Of course, in all of these categories, any of these categories, like they have their various branch offs, so which in their various cases are also vast, but will just be fast to go to the business of the day. So now, an overview of the petroleum economics area. So by definition, not a class definition or an academic definition. So petroleum economics just involves all the activities that goes to optimize petroleum and its products. So by optimization, we mean how to use petrol, like both the funds we have, all the resources we have, including petroleum itself, so to maximize the outputs in its refined forms or in its crude form be selling. So why I'm just giving this very broad definition is because we've not tallied it down to any of the any of the categories in the value chains I mentioned before. So you can talk about optimizing crude oil, its exploration, even production, refining to the sales. So, and even the consumption, and in the case of government, the distribution and all. So, yeah, but just all the optimization processes involved in the petroleum industry just entails a petroleum economist. So, path to becoming a petroleum economist, one of the obvious processes so is to get a degree in economics or related fields. So by related fields, so you talk about accounting, mathematics, business management, statistics. So any graduate from any of those fields can actually practice petroleum economics, including engineers, of course. So their knowledge of the oil and gas industry this. So by this presentation, I'm limiting some of the things to trainee positions, that is just fresh graduates that are looking for career opportunities in the petroleum industry or in petroleum economics. So for advanced hires, so there is obviously a different tune to read, but still related to this anyway. So roles of petroleum economics across the oil and gas value chains. The oil and gas value chains, there are some typos there. So the roles in the upstream sector, if you remember, the upstream sector is the exploration and the production sector. So in the upstream sector, you have a reserve optimization. So the oil reserve, you want to maintain an oil reserve. You just don't want to be depleting. You want to even increase the oil reserve. You want to produce in a way that is not necessarily depleting the fields, the wells, and all. So those decisions so are concerns of the engineer in alignment with the economists. Of course, the engineer, they do their technical analysis, they do their testing and all. They also do their studies. And when it comes to the commercial side, the economist gives his or her steer. So the production aspect, I just mentioned something about the well. You don't want to produce in a way to kill the well. So you also don't want to be underutilizing your resources. So at any point in time, so you just need to do some optimizations around it. So also the whole projects in the upstream sector is the concern of the petroleum economists, the management projects. So sales, again, sales of crude to either refineries or off-takers or whichever partner it is. So those are also the concerns of the petroleum economics as far as the upstream sector is concerned. In the midstream sector, which is refining and which is transportation and storage, you talk about the oil and gas frame time traders. So those people that are always interested in what the crude oil price is, because they don't want to, they don't just want to sell their products in a way that jeopardize their investment. Yeah, so you don't want to sell below the price, or if you know that there is a forecast that price will increase, you don't just want to sell at a very lower price today. So those are the concerns of still an economist. But in the midstream sector, the stock taker who takes the stock of taking, you understand, whichever volume of oil or gas that is being of taking at any point or being produced and this and that. So that's the concern of an economist. So the negotiator who negotiates with partners and customers. So in the downstream sector, you have the price analyst and so many other roles in the downstream sector. But for the purpose of this presentation, we'll be limiting it a bit to the upstream sector, which is the exploration and production sector. So, and that takes us to the experience proper in the upstream sector. So in the upstream sector, we've explained that it's just the exploration and production sector. Of course, that is a very, very, very high-level summary of what the upstream sector entails. Because if you look deeper into the upstream sector, you look at exploration, that is exploring for oil or gas. So, and when found, you look into exploration wells, you look into acquisition studies and appraisal before the exploration wells, the appraisal wells, development, production wells, and the actual production of oil itself. So with various departments, you have different engineering fields working together to make this possible. So it's a very vast sector. So just calling it exploration and production is a very high level summary. So but the role of an economist, the experience of an economist in the upstream sector, you have reserve management. I've talked about this. So you talk about forecasting. Okay, you have a particular. So even in this, let me just mention in this reserve management. So it's not just enough for you to see, for you to discover that there is an oil reserve in social location. So after discovering that, you want to be sure that after exploring the oil, after producing, that it is commercially viable. You understand? Because the cost of exploration, drilling, and all, so is not just let's say billions of naira. No, it isn't. So it runs into billions of naira and sometimes billions of dollars. So most times combined. So you want to be sure that it's commercially viable. So like you have a quantity that's after the investment in cost and time. So, and not only in money and time too. You have a field, like most of the fields that are still producing today are up to 30 years and more. So it also takes time from exploration for you to even produce your first oil. So you want to be sure that that investment is commercially viable, not just that you have an amount of oil. Is it something you can really harness? And if yes, is it in commercial quantity? So that's the concern of an economist to check. So forecasting is another, using our NPV, net present value, the internal rate of return, break-even analysis, the payback period. So you want to also know the payback period. If you're investing such amount of money today, when are you really going to get the payback, having drawn the production cycle? So those are the concerns of an economist. Obviously, in all of this, they work with engineers, because the engineers, they have the technical information. So the engineers, the geophysicists, and the likes. So those ones, they have the technical information. They just supply those data to the economist, who does his analysis and also inform them back. So project management, in all of this, every aspect of this. So there are all separate projects working towards same goal. The economists worked with them in all of these. So again, there is in the upstream sector, another role that the petroleum economists could play is petroleum accounting. Yes, I just mentioned this. Of course, there are accountants who do this, but I mean, in the industry, we notice that sometimes it's not only accountants that work in the accounting role. So when there are no accountants, or when they need personnel, the easiest people to call on to are the economists and those maybe who studied mathematics and statistics. So they will be working in the accounting role. So in the petroleum accounting, you look into tasks, of course, in the oil and gas industry, not just in Nigeria, across the globe. So you have a different tasks to pay, tax, royalty, rent, and the likes to pay to the government. So it is the concern of the accountants here, stroke economists, so to make sure that we remit all of these obligations to the government. So again, they control revenue of the company. The revenue of the company. Here we talk about general accounting. Here we talk about management accounting, giving management updated information of the health of the business. So that's the concern of the economist or accountant, insurance, of course, as I said, the investment in the oil and gas industry. So they're actually in millions and billions of dollars. So you want to sometimes, so you are not very certain, like you can invest all of this money, and after your study, I mean, you did some studies, so, and even acquisition and everything, and you are guessing, or your studies is actually projecting that there is a reserve of oil and this and that. So, but sometimes even after exploration, you will find out that the amount you have is not commercially viable. So, or as sometimes, this is going a little bit technical, but as sometimes that after drilling, you find out that you actually didn't hit the rate target you aimed at. So because these studies are not very exact, so technologies these days make it more exact than it used to be. So what I mean here is that there is actually risk involved, risk in terms of time, money, and sometimes this money is not just your money. So, I mean, nobody dips hand into his or her pocket to get billions of dollars or billions of dollars, whichever case it is, to invest in one project. So even if you do, whatever way you get the money, so that is a very big risk. You want to ensure that investment, ensure your assets, including the human resource. So you want to ensure all of this. So that's the concern of the economists, to also consider and give you a good policy to go with. So there is also the treasury managing the treasury of the company. Okay, so how much do we invest at social point so that we don't run out of cash when it is the critical time to actually inject cash, and how do you manage this when there is already inflow of cash, of revenue? So how do you manage this to be taking advantage of opportunities when they arise? So that's also the concern of the economist. So again, very important is very important is also budgeting. So budgeting, in a typical oil and gas company, so they have different assets. What they call the assets is the OMLs, the oil, prior to the PIA, so the oil mining leases. So that's like having a field. So a field where you are producing oil. So you can have OML AB or OML 1, or let's say in the Nigerian nomenclature, you can have something like OML 131 and OML 135. So there are two different assets. One can be managed by a manager, like they function like a full department. You have a manager, you have a deputy manager, you have engineers from different fields, mechanical, petroleum, chemical, from different fields. They have their accountants, they have their planners or economists, they have this, they have their lawyers and all. So in the other department, they have this. So in all this, now aggregating both for different assets or even for companies that have one asset. So it's only very big oil companies that have plenty assets. Some oil companies that even have one asset function as as big oil companies, because if you check their revenue, if you check their budget, it runs into millions of dollars. So that already makes them a big company. So someone takes care of the budgeting. Okay, how much are we investing this year? What projects are we going to execute this year? How does it affect our production? And how does it translate to revenue? Okay, if we do this year, how are we going to do it next year? So something like a medium-term strategic plan. So it is the concern of the economists to also do this budgeting. And then after the budgeting, during the execution and all, they also do performance management. So to see how well they're spending they're executing the budgeted items and amounts. So like if you budget for this and planned for so let's say 100 barrels of oil per day, are you meeting up with that? Are you overshooting that? Is your money, are you overspending the money per unit of oil you are producing? So performance management looks into this. So, and it's the concern of the economist. There is also the cash call. Okay, so given that investment in oil and gas industry. So we've established that it takes a huge amount. So most times what you see is partnerships of different kinds, mostly called JVs, joint ventures. So they have different arrangements. They have even production sharing. They have risk sharing. Just different arrangements. But what it just means is that two companies come together to fund a particular project, or one company is funding a project, but they feel they don't have the technical know-how, or they don't have enough resources to actually do the production itself. So they can actually partner with another company who will come in to play as the operator. That is the person really doing the work, the manager of the assets. The other person is the owner of the assets. So the lessee in the language of the business. So the owner of the lease. So the operator now operates the assets, manages everything for him. But in a case where there is a joint venture, like both of them have equities in the assets. So most times, every month they call for cash call. Like they call each partners. Okay, so this month as budgeted, we're carrying out so projects, and as budgeted, the amount is say 100 million. So if it is 100 million and company A has 50% or say 60% equity in the asset, that means company A is expected to bring 60 million and company B is expected to bring 40 million to fund that particular project. So, and that also translates, let's say now in the whole budget, assuming that the whole budget is 500 million, in that 60 to 40 ratio, that means company A would be funding, at the end of the day, would be funding $300 million, and company B would be funding $200 million. So in that fiscal year. So consequently, the productions, when it comes to off-taking the productions, company A would be taking the same amount of equity that he has. So, and company B will be taking. So in almost everything that comes up, be it cost or revenue. So that is how they will be sharing their exposure and benefits. So that's cash call explained, and it is the economists that also manage this cash call. So commercial and also stock taking. I've talked about stock taking. So who is sometimes due to lack of facilities, not just lack of facilities, for those of us that are economists here, so due to economies of scale, so you don't just go forth into having your own pipeline. I remember I told you that pipeline business is a vast business on its own. Like there are some companies that what they do is just having pipelines, and they are very big companies in their own respect. So as an operator, as an exploration and a production company, you may not be interested in actually having pipelines. So, and you want to be passing your crude through another company's pipeline, and that company also wants another company to, like, it wants as many companies as it can carry to be passing their crude through their pipelines. So there will be stock takers. So me now, who is an operator, will send one of my employees to be a stock taker. He will be taking the stock of what we are producing each day, which is passing through company X pipeline each day, such that company B, who is also doing his independent exploration and production, passing his crude through the same pipeline. So we'll, like all of us, know what we are passing through the pipeline at the end of the day, and we go for reconciliation, so nobody cheats the other person, and the amount we are paying to the pipeline owner, so it's consumed to our production and what is helping us to transport. So all of these things are also the concerns of the economists, and the commercials, going to who the off-taking, who we give our crude to. In most cases, the refineries, and also we export through customers. So whichever way, the economist has to get invoices. So, and take stock of what we've sold, how many, at what price, for a day. So because prices changes, so you want to be certain about those, and even the obligations we have, because most times what you notice most times that it's not just immediately after production you start looking for who will buy, or you have people waiting. No, you have an obligation with particular companies to supply them so amount of crude or gas. So you want to be sure that you are meeting up with what is in the agreement, and you also discounting them from the total sum. So that's the concern of an economist too. So there is also JV governance. So I've explained what joint venture is. Of course, this is just like partnership, what we call partnership in every other business. So be it a joint venture that the two parties or multiple parties have equities. So in one particular asset, or in such a way, there is also an arrangement where I have sole equity, like I have 100% equity in the asset, but I want another company to operate for me, because maybe given my resources and my assets, they are already in using other assets, but this is my asset that I just got the lease or license. So, and I get another company to produce. So that could be in form of production sharing contract, PSC. So there is the risk sharing, there is a service contract. You understand? So in any of these arrangements, so you want to be sure that you are meeting with the obligations of the other partner, what you people agreed on, that you are doing this, that at any point in time the other partner is carrying you along, especially if you are an equity holder. So if you're an equity holder, that means for every cash flow you are making your inputs. If you are 100% equity holder, that means you are the only person investing, you are the owner of the asset is yours, so your liability is actually high. So it's just that the other person is operating it for you, operating the asset for you. So you have to be holding meetings with the asset to make sure that, first of all, the budgeting process passed the normal process, and the approved budget is known, the amount is known, the projects to be done for the year or in the medium term are all defined, and they are in line with the asset's life. So then you have to be holding performance management meetings, you have to be holding reconciliation meetings. So many meetings, all of these meetings are called governance. How do you govern the assets? So it is also the economist who plays as a manager that handles the governance process, the JV governance process. So I've mentioned something about management accounting when I was talking about petroleum accounting. So this roles I just mentioned, the lists are not exhaustive anyway, but these roles I mentioned are what the economist, like the economist in an oil and gas company, in this case, the upstream case. So these roles are one of the things maybe you will find yourself doing if you are an upstream company in the oil and gas value chain. If there is a question I can take. If none, I'll proceed to other slides. So, having talked about various roles that the economists play in the petroleum industry, so what are the needed skills? What do you need to do? So, as I say, I'm assuming that we have undergraduates and young graduates. So, in this session, so that implies that maybe you will be taking graduate trainee roles if you're going into the oil and gas industry, not experienced roles. So given that the skills, you need IT skills, of course, for the computations. You have very, very plenty computations with activities and amounts that run into like 300 columns and rows. So you have to have IT skills, basic IT skills, to be able to do your manipulations in Excel and other tools. So you have to have analytical skills, just like every other economist. Business finance skills, you have to know some business finance terms, so, and how it relates to your industry. Managerial skill, so yeah, it's pays to tell here that you are acting like a manager, no matter your level. So as far in most of these cases, if you go back to any of these cases, you're actually acting like the manager of the projects. You are acting like the manager of the projects. In any way you are getting information or taking in decision on behalf of management. So depending on your level. So if you are still young in the industry, you are getting information that you feedback to your team, with which they will take decision, either investment decision, either sales decision, either partnership, or whichever decision on behalf of the management. So you are acting like a manager. So managerial roles are of interest. So by training and certifications, of course, a degree for most companies, they want you to have a degree in, as I said, in economics or related fields, mathematics, statistics, accounting, and all. Even engineers, yeah, I have I've seen some managers in like I presume economics departments, so who are engineers. We've seen some other young people who are engineers. So as far as you've been employed, the company can actually deploy you based on business need. Yeah. So again, certifications, we talk about PMI, Project Management Institute certifications, the CFA, CCA, NIM, SAP training. SAP, okay, so for most companies, from my observation, SAP is the interface that they normally use. So also there are trainings and certifications in petroleum economics. So the trainings and certifications can as well help. So joining professional bodies in the petroleum industry, chiefly, we have the SPE, which is a Society of Petroleum Engineers. Yes, you don't need to be an engineer to be one. Some people join from schools. Also, you don't need to be a graduate to be one. Some people join from schools. If you're a student, you can check your school. Perhaps they have a SPE session. Even if you're not a student, check your state. SPE has their sessions in almost every state, or check the nearest session around you. If you're interested, you can join SPE. So there is also the CITN, that is a Chartered Institute of Taxation. As I explained, it is the economist, so the accountant, who takes care of taxation in the oil and gas industry. So there is SCCA, CFA, ICANN, NIM, ICEN, and plenty other professional bodies as that relates to your field. So I just mentioned this one because they relate to the petroleum economics role. So there are so many other certifications and trainings you can just acquire to help your job roles and functions. So again, now I've mentioned the skills, I've mentioned the functions, the roles. So now, in comparison with other career paths in the industry, so in the petroleum industry, okay, how does the economist fare when you compare him to an engineer or someone, or a lawyer, or an accountant? And also coming to the opportunities, so there is actually a very vast opportunity, as I mentioned, just in the exploration and production sector, that is the upstream sector. So you can imagine the number of roles so you can actually play. So you don't necessarily need to limit yourself to one role. So there are opportunities, of course. So you can, if you are not doing budgeting, you are in commercials. If you are not doing that, you are in sustainability. If you are not doing that, you are maybe even in an account. If you are doing taxation, you are doing this, you are doing also stock taking. So there are actually opportunities, and then even growth opportunities too. Yes, you can easily grow in the industry because given the role, you actually, because you are either getting information from management or helping to take decisions. So you see the business from a helicopter point of view. Yeah, you are involved in this, you are involved in that, you are involved in almost every aspect of the business for it to function very well. Starting from budgeting, having budget alone already tells you every project that the company intends to do that year and in the coming years. Going for performance meetings tells you what the company has done, what they have done well, what they regretted not doing or doing, and this and that, where they're doing well and where they're not. So that increases your opportunity to grow. Coming to welfare is mostly general for new recruits. So salary is almost equal for new recruits. So, but there are some benefits. This is not limited to the oil and gas industry. So there are benefits that are attached to certain roles. Like if you are exposed to risk, like if you're going to the field is a risky place in this own sense, though we try as much as we can to minimize the risk to zero level. So, but I mean, for offshore fields, for instance, you can be in a field where you are not seeing anything onshore, like you are not seeing anything land for a week or 2 weeks or some time depending. So, and those things are considered risk. So they are considered risk or hazard, or at least and a cost so on the employees. So based on that, their welfare most times are higher. The salary could be the same, but the welfare, maybe hazard allowance, this one allowance. So given that their welfare could be higher, welfare package could be higher at the end of the month. So coming to the experience, the petroleum economist is actually vast in his experience due to the fact that you are part of the strategic planning, you are part of budgeting, you can always assess the budget, you know the level of performance, you know the production level at any point in time, you know this and that. So actually the experience is vast. So the experience is vast. Most times you are in a position to know better than every other person, including the engineers, except of course in the technical aspect of the business. So at the end of the day, the petroleum industry belongs to engineers. It's an engineering company, specifically petroleum engineers. So nobody argues it with them. So nobody contests it with them. But I mean, in terms of experience, you can actually, given the same number of years in the industry, the petroleum economist actually has higher opportunities to have better experience in the industry than the engineers, not technical experience, I repeat. So then the job security, just like in every other company, if you're doing your work very well, the petroleum industry is not crumbling today, not even tomorrow. Irrespective of the conspiracies all of us will hear, it's not crumbling today, not tomorrow. So if you do your job very well and your company is making their profits, so your job security is high. But in comparison with other career paths, the engineers, as I stated, the engineers are the owners of the industry. However, fortunately, you are not competing with them. They are not coming to take your role. Neither are you going to take their role. Though sometimes based on business needs, there could be a deployment of employees from one role to the other. So job security, I would say that is fair above average. Yeah. So again, then job security, let me just extend this to other industries like the banking, the consulting and co. Yeah. So if you're a petroleum economist, if you go back to the roles I mentioned, that means after that you can actually function in many other industries, because while you are doing all of those things for the oil and gas, if you take it to another company, you can actually still do similar things. You just need to have the knowledge of the company. So I've seen people who leave the oil and gas sector to other sectors. So if they so wish, but it is rare. Most actually prefer staying back in the oil and gas sector. So that's that. Then risk and hazard. The risk for the petroleum economists is actually very much lower, because you don't go to the field. You rarely actually go to the field to do anything. So you're more of a corporate worker, so than a field worker. So the risk is lower. Unlike the man you are seeing here, who is obviously an engineer. Of course, as a petroleum economist, you can as well use the overall if you're going to the field. So, but let's assume that these are engineers. So your risk is lower in your office, on your table, than these people who are exposed to everyday field risk and hazards. So career change within the industry, yes, from your core planning and commercial job, you can always go to finance, though there are some restrictions. You'll be lucky if you already have some certifications related to finance and accounting, and if you have the knowledge. But you can always change. I've seen people do that, have an experience in that too. So you can always change to finance and account properly. You can as well do some other role, like you can function in the supply chain divisions. So there are some other roles you can actually play in the industry. And after so many years of experience, you can actually function very well in the asset team. Remember, I told you that each asset functions almost like a company on its own. However, for some big oil companies, they have different assets that they are managing, so in their portfolio. So you can actually, there are opportunities for career change, but they're just mostly limited to management and finance, the divisions of the company. Unlike here now, remember we're trying to compare, unlike the engineer. So here, the engineer can actually move from engineering section to management section easily. The person just needs to do some trainings and certifications in just some economist decisions and go, and they will function properly in the management divisions. As I told you, I've seen engineers who are managers in planning departments, for instance. So I've seen that, but it's rare for an economist now to be manager drilling or manager exploration. That's a very rare case. I've not seen. So that's about comparing the petroleum economists with other professionals in the field, like petroleum economists, the drilling experts, exploration experts, and other various disciplines in the oil and gas industry. So now, may I take your questions or your inputs at this point? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abuchi. That was quite an insightful conversation. So we'll be opening the floor for questions right now. If you have your questions, you can type it on the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask right away. I have a couple of questions myself, but I want other people to go first. Or let me just ask my question. So thank you very much. So in the light of what you mentioned, you mentioned that the petroleum industry is not going anywhere anytime soon. There's been concerns in the world today.
Hello, testimony.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, I don't know if if it's from my own side. Okay, so there's been concerns in the world today about renewable energy and renewable energy, hydrogen, solar, wind power. The world has been talking about climate change and how the carbon footprints of our activities, especially around drilling, is affecting the world, and that has been leading a lot of companies to be tilting towards the renewables. From what you're seeing in the industry, do you think that this quest for renewables is going to affect the career opportunity, say in the next 10-20 years, of somebody that wants to practice petroleum economics?
Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's my question.
I think I had I think my network is bad, but I joined with another place. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I just asked my question. I said that given the quest for renewables, hydrogen and carbon footprint, that a couple of, especially those in the Northern Hemisphere, has been talking about, and the quest for moving to renewables, we've seen significant investments along renewables for many companies, private and even multinational companies, are now investing heavily in that renewables. Given this particular trend, do you think that it's going to negatively impact the career opportunities for petroleum economists, say in the coming future, from what you're seeing? Because again, from what you mentioned, a petroleum economist's job essentially revolves around administration and management of petroleum resources. across the entire value chain, upstream to downstream. So given these movements, even though I have reservations towards it, to renewables, do you think it's going to impact the chances of a petroleum economist?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, let's assess the sincerity and also the viability of the renewables. So, from very sincere projections and very factual projections, so till the nearest future, actually fossil fuel, chiefly petroleum, will remain the main source of energy. So without competitions. So, but what about beyond that? What about beyond next 30 years, next 50 years? What happens? So what happens is that for some of those industries, for some of those other energy sources, so you still need the fossil fuel to power some of their plants, and for some of them, they're not. The problem with renewable energies is that they're not really available. For instance, in Nigeria, you have the solar energy. Well, we're lucky to be in this part of the world where you see sunlight almost every day. But in some other part of the world, you actually don't experience sunlight every day, not in adequate amounts. So, but apart from sunlight in Nigeria now, so we're talking about solar. If the next thing maybe you can talk about is wind energy, for instance, so of which we don't actually have enough. You understand? Because you don't just need breeze to power wind plants or something. So you actually need a substantial amount, and you don't have them. So looking at the sincere assessment of that industry, so actually indicates that petroleum, till the nearest future, will still be the cheap source of energy. So across the globe. However, we are open to renewable energy because it's a cleaner source of energy, though gas comes close. So now coming to how it jeopardizes the job of an economist, I don't think it does. So because a petroleum economist can easily extend to be an energy analyst. Sorry, I just want to be sure that my network is still up. So can easily extend to be an energy analyst across various industries in the energy sector. So it's the demand for energy across the sectors are actually similar. So in talking about the global scale of it, so I don't think it's that jeopardized. As a matter of fact, most oil companies, including the national oil companies, including Nigeria's own national oil company, NNPC, they have divisions already mapped out for renewables. So they're also adopting that as a part of their plans. So that's that. I don't know if that addresses your question.
Okay, I think that really answers the question, and I think this is quite insightful. One of the things you mentioned during the course of this conversation was about how the skills learned, why carrying out many of these tasks are transferable, essentially to other areas. And I allude to that fact. Accounting is accounting. There are different types of careers are grouped into two broadly. We have functional areas and we have industry areas. Functional are like the basic things that are the same irrespective of the industry they are being applied. And I think those functional skills like accounting, investments, budgeting, business acumen, those things are things that are really transferable and can be useful. So I think it also helps with these movements to renewables, even though I really do not believe in it as much, except for nuclear fusion, that some progress has been made. Okay, we have another question here. Could you please provide insights on the availability of job placements and opportunities for petroleum economists in the petroleum industry, particularly within small and medium-sized companies? This question pertains to the comparison you made during the presentation regarding the economic roles of petroleum economists in relation to other positions within the petroleum industry.
Okay. Talking about job opportunities, so and related to small and medium-sized companies. Okay, and in this case, the person that's asking the question, so said petroleum industry, so which means it's not limited to the upstream sector. So job availability, yeah. So as far as any company is to function, I mean, an economist can actually work in that company. I wouldn't say that it's compulsory. If he's an accountant, yes, it's compulsory. So if you're an economist who has accounting certifications, so then yeah, you have a larger job opportunities. So because almost compulsory that you need that. So however, an economist can have opportunities like almost unlimited opportunities. So in these companies, because you need to take care of, as I mentioned, you need to take care of your budgeting, you need to take care of your taxation, insurance, and all. So let me not just delve into accounting, because for you to have accounting certification, then you are doubly almost as an accountant. So yeah, you have a job opportunities, yes, including in very small companies. Yeah, in fact, in small companies, you just need the technical person and then the manager, the commercial person, because small companies just come to do, take care of some aspects of the business, like contractors. So a contractor can just be someone who, let's say, has someone who has social facilities to lease to oil companies, talking about the upstream sectors, or who does a particular line of job for the upstream company. So those are contractors, even taking not just technical ones, including some accounting jobs, including some software roles. So apart from that technical person who administers the job in terms of soft jobs, or the engineers who does the job in the field in terms of the engineering and technical roles, there is always the economist who is there to negotiate, who is there to do this, who is there to do that. So yeah, for every company, including the oil and gas, there are actually opportunities. I don't think there will be any oil and gas company, no matter the size, no matter the area, no matter the sector, so who doesn't need some managerial decisions and roles, and that is being filled by the economist. So now I'm talking about the job placements. So job placements, by job placements, I guess the person is asking about the specific goals. So job placement, you can work in budget department. So as a budgeting expert, you can work as a strategic planner, you can work as a commercial stock taker, you can work as a commercial analyst. So there are different roles specific for economists, or just a lecturer to economists. Like you come in there and you don't shop, you can always find your way out. So those are major job placements. But by extension, you can as well go to finance division to manage treasury, to manage foreign payments and the likes, to manage insurance, and even management, accounting and reporting and the like. So those ones are also placements for the petroleum economics and the petroleum industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the other question I want to ask is quite political, and is as it relates to subsidy, the subsidy removal. There's been some school of thoughts that believe that the current shocks we are experiencing in the petroleum industry with respect to pricing is going to the pricing, in simple terms, the pricing is going to come down much later in future if certain things happen. I don't know, what is your view in that respect from what you've seen in the industry? Do you think that particular truth is going to hold for Nigeria?
As it concerns the removal of subsidy.
Exactly.
So, okay, well, which perfect example? There's actually no better example to use than petroleum itself. I wish we were discussing another industry so that I can use petroleum as an example. So no single individual actually can affect the price of petroleum. You understand? So like crude oil itself now, no single individual can affect the price of petroleum. Countries, companies, especially when they collude to form this thing. So that is when to form a cartel like OPEC. That is when they can actually affect the price of crude. Of course, countries that produce large quantities can as well affect the price of crude. So no single individual can affect price of crude. Keeping that in check, I know our subsidy is mostly in terms of PMS, right? So, but the price of PMS is being derived from the price of crude, among so many other things. So it now varies across different countries depending on the availability. Okay, are they producers of crude? Do they have refineries at home? If they don't have refineries, where do they refine and how much does it take? So all of these things will be put into consideration before they arrive at a single price. So, but the chief determinant of price of crude is just forces of demand and supply. So the supply of crude at any point and the demand for it at that point. So and that also affects price of petrochemical. At least the first line of products like kerosene and PMS. So the price of crude actually affects them. And if not for some certain things, including subsidy, so you'll be seeing price across different countries being almost the same, except for the factors I already stated. Is the country a producer? Do they have refineries? If not, where do they import from? And all of this is coming to play. So coming to the subsidy proper. So I don't think the subsidy removal will make price to go up and then come down later. No. So I expect an increase in price. So because it's by subsidy, it means the government has been paying part of what the consumers should have been paying. So, and with the removal of it, it's expected that the burden on the consumer will increase. I don't see any reason it will just naturally decrease. So what can make it decrease is if price of crude comes down, or there is a cheaper way of getting our refined products, either by building refineries thanks to Dangote's refinery or any other place. Even with Dangote's refinery is not a national refinery. It's a private company which I believe will play competitive in every other business. So the only possible advantage is that if it can serve the domestic market, if it has the capacity to serve the domestic market, that means the cost of transportation will be removed from our consideration when you are calculating the PMS. Remember, all these things are market driven, so that's that. So I don't think there will be a drop in price just due to the subsidy removal of government policy. So anything government policy that will drive price down is like a pegging price again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.